you don't get to project your emotional state onto your family and your children. It's a very immature and a very prominent issue in society where we think because we're not okay, we can't own up to ourselves and hold ourselves to a higher standard. But right now, we need to show up for our children. And right now, we need to show up in a situation, no matter what is going on. That doesn't mean that you're stuffing things down. That means that you have emotional intelligence. That means that you can be mindful and present in the moment and take ownership of yourself.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Through the Mirror. This week's episode, we're going to talk about the fatherhood crisis going on in society. I'd say the best place to start, Andrea, is it seems like that the bare minimum is like the standard in today's society. It's like go to work, put in 40 hours, come home, and you paid the bills. So that means, oh, we're good. The father did what he needed to do, but anything past that it seems like it's severely lacking. And to play a little bit of devil's advocate, I guess you could say, I think a lot of fathers and just men in general don't know what's really past that. What's there more? How could they show up more? And whether that's a lack of example, or you said that a societal thing. There's not a lot of community. There's not a lot of examples in society for men to look to go, oh, well, that's supposed to be the standard. That should be the golden standard of what it is
I
to be a
think
father and a
it's
partner.
I think it's actually there's a lot of examples that we think are masculinity in society and in circles. Like there's like almost too many examples of quote unquote masculinity. You have like the Hate Brothers where it's all like, oh yeah, that's masculine, being ripped and rich and saying F you on the internet and just acting like, you're so confident. And I say acting because I actually don't really think they're that confident of men. They're compensating for their insecurities in life or their issues that they've gone through at some point, which you can tell they have a lot of issues anyway. If that's for people and that's how they want to live, that's fine too. But I wouldn't say that as an example of real masculinity. Or like you just mentioned, doing the bare minimum. Like, sure, you both are married or you're in a partnership, you both own the house and you both are raising children, then that means you both have to raise the children or you both have to take responsibilities on. Because think about it, if you lived alone, if you're a single guy or a single woman, you take on all these responsibilities, right? Like you wash the dishes, you cook dinner, you clean, mow the yard. You know, if you're single, well, you have all these responsibilities, but in a partnership, you kind of are supposed to have this like balance where you come together and find what works for you and in your relationship. And when it comes to masculinity, I think we have a bunch of very warped views. Like you'll have the really like, I'm super strong, take charge in my home, but really you just go to work, come home. Maybe you don't have emotional intelligence and you yell at everybody all the time. And that's your, I guess, a view of doing something. But being a parent or being a father or a mother is a lot more in depth than that. Otherwise, you're just taking on a title. You're not actually in that role or taking ownership. And when it comes to masculinity, I think there is a lot of blurred lines and I guess what you would call examples that really aren't. It's more so mixed with misogyny and insecurities, like in control. So you're painting masculinity as this controlling thing when it's the complete opposite. And I'm sure you can touch on that more.
Yeah, I mean, with with masculinity and fatherhood, there's like this weird stigma where you go and you work, you pay the bills, you take care of, there's the stigma of, oh, I take care of the outside, but the woman take care of the inside type thing. And it's on the mom to bring up the children. And yes, there's something to be said about a woman is naturally more nurturing and stuff like that. And there's a role with that, but there's this twisted thing that being a father or being the man just means being the like hard judge. It's like the whole good cop, bad cop situation where the mom's the good cop, the dad's the bad cop, and that's the dynamic it needs to be. A father's
Yeah.
just supposed to teach their son how to change a tire, fix a leaky sink, and that's the gist of it. There's no real connection with their children. There's nothing, really past that surface level part of it. Like how are you connecting emotionally with your child? And a lot of fathers struggle with that. And I would say a big part of that is because they're not emotionally connecting with themselves. If you can't connect to yourself emotionally, how can you connect to your child emotionally as well? You can't meet your child at a place you haven't met yourself, especially when it comes to that father son dynamic. Because then there's going to be a certain level of butting heads for that masculine energy alpha struggle there.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that we have so much surface level in society in general, like surface level emotions, surface level lives. Just everything is very how built upon how you look or how you're accepted in the community or how you're accepted into belonging to a group of people instead of finding out who you really are. And I mean, some of this is supposed to happen, in your childhood. You're supposed to be taught and guided and led into this kind of nurturing state. Mothers and fathers alike do this for their children. But unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people have had that to where they have, disconnected relationships. I can't tell you how many times I hear, oh, when I was growing up, I just went to school and my parents weren't home when I got home and I got myself dinner or this and that. And I just said good night. And sometimes people are like, oh, and I turned out just fine. And I'm like, that's really sad, actually, that your core memories of your childhood was that your parents were never there. And I've seen this in dynamics where there's both parents are there. Like this isn't in cases of single parents. I'm talking about two people that are together, partnership. So I think it's about getting into that depth. And if you're not going to be involved in your family, not just coasting, not just doing the bare minimum, then you really can't say that you took your role as a father seriously or that you knew how to be a father, totally embody that role. And I think that's a big missing aspect in society to where it doesn't mean that you're controlling and you're dominant and your wife just has to stay home and have her role like it's a costume because in every partnership there's going to be a different situation, a different dynamic, and that has to fit the two individuals that agree to this partnership. And that looks different for a lot of people and it looks similar to others, but that doesn't mean that because you have some kind of role set up and a system set up doesn't mean that you're actually showing up and being present, aware, and involved with your children or your spouse, or taking on things as a partnership instead of well, your job is to do the dishes and my job is to mow the lawn. If you agree to that, great. But does that mean when your wife isn't feeling well that you don't do the dishes or you don't pick up the extra load or you don't look around and see that, ooh, things are crazy when I got home today. Maybe I need to step up and help my spouse because she looks overwhelmed right now. Or if you would come home and things like you had a long day and I see that like you're running on like fumes, I got this. It's okay. Just go sit down and chill and we'll figure this out. But that's based on the day. That's based on the present moment and the situation at hand, not a like religious task that you do every single day.
And I think with everything we have access to in the modern age, it actually makes it easier than ever to be disconnected from the family unit. I mean, you have, like you said, if dad works all day, puts in anywhere from 8 to 12 hours and comes home, it's not abnormal for it's like, okay, I want my drink, my dinner, and I'm sitting in front of the TV. Kids, I had a day, go play, go watch your own TV, go do your tablets, whatever. So immediately after a dad is gone all day, he's going to come home and then disconnect from the family unit immediately because he had a long day. And that's not a every so often thing. Like I get it. Not every day you can just be like, okay, I'm home and I'm immediately able to just emotionally plug in like that. Like there's those days where you need a minute, you need some time, you need a break or whatever. But it's actually more common that that's the norm. That's the daily norm, is just immediately being disconnected from the family unit. And then what are we doing on the weekends? We're doing yard work. We're doing things, which isn't a bad thing to do, but are you again separating yourself from the family? What's happening on Sunday? Is it sports all day while the kids go do their own things? Are you separated from your spouse and you each are doing your own things all the time and not having time together. It's easier than ever today to be disconnected from each other. And that wasn't that wasn't as much of a problem a long time ago. I mean, people's survival depended on everybody working together and being together and doing things together. So there wasn't as much of a choice, whether it was fun or not, there was that connection. Whether, a father having to teach his son how to hunt, how to track, how to stack wood, how to do all these things. It was just what was considered that 8, 12 hours working day was spent with your family. And
Mhm.
we don't have that today. That's just not how our society runs now. So now you actually have to really put an effort in to fill that gap and have that connection with your family unit. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of men, a lot of fathers don't know how to do it. And it's also not exclusive just to fathers. You look at the economy now, it's very, very hard statistically now to survive on a one income household. So now where does that come from? The mother is having to work either a part-time or a full-time job as well. So you're bringing daycares into play, nannies, babysitters. So then you're adding more layers of disconnect from the family unit that you now have to, in some way, make up for and establish that connection. And to your point, this is going to look different for every family unit. What does your family unit look like? What do you guys have going on? And there just needs to be conversations had, and there needs to be awareness of the need for that connection in the first place and how important that is for your children. Because they're not going to just tell you, hey, these are my needs, I need you to fulfill them. They say it in subtle ways and they're not direct about it. They show you emotionally what they need, and it's up to the parent to be in tune with that, to pick up on that and provide that, but you have to be there to provide that.
Well, I think this actually encompasses, I know we're talking about fathers and masculinity somewhat here, but it also, like, I'm a naturopath. So for me, it's like this encompasses your whole lifestyle, right? Your foundations of health. And often when I sit with people, it's like, okay, what's going on in your life that's causing stress and all these things building up to why you can't be healthy and it goes beyond, just diet alone. So let's just look at this. Foundations of health as a naturopath means that you're getting time in nature with your family, with your friends. You're taking time to be mindful and breathe and eat well and chew your food and be present. And I think a lot of times we don't realize is to have a healthy life, you almost have to make an encompass around nature and how things actually work in our bodies as well as our relationships and connection in our homes. So if you're like never spending time with your family unit, you're never making an conscious effort to make sure that you're spending time with your children, that you're leading, that you're growing, that you're improving yourself, that you sit down and make sure that your children know how to chew their food and you're leading by example and you're cooking good food and you're teaching. There's so many things here that if you, I guess, worry about yourself and work on yourself, this kind of manifests into your family unit, right? Because then you're leading by example to where you're not going to, sit and watch TV for 4 hours every night when you get off work and eat your dinner and then your kids are in bed and well, what did you do all night? You sat in front of the TV, you didn't spend any time together, you didn't read a book together, you didn't go outside, go to the park. You're missing out on life yourself. It's not even just your children, or you're not, having the awareness to see what's going on in your home with your spouse, with each other. How's your relationship? How's your connection? Are your kids going to bed at night and you aren't spending time together? You're not taking time to talk. You're not taking time to communicate your needs to each other. And this is where things start falling apart. And there's a lot of different kinds of, I guess, expressions of this because you have men that, you know, they do everything for their family, and perhaps the other partner in the relationship isn't showing up or isn't caring. And then you have the other situation there. Are you, as a man, showing up and addressing that? Are you talking about that? Are you saying, hey, how can we make this better? How can I show up for you and be a partner? How can we show up for each other? And I think a lot of it is that we're just too scared to have conversations we're too scared to communicate. We're too scared to focus on our unit alone and not care what other people think about it, living your life. I think all those things are important. So I guess there's a lot of layers here. Why is masculinity and fatherhood suffering in society? I think because as a whole, we're suffering as a person beyond being a father, beyond being a man. You're suffering as on an individual level, not just in showing up in that direction.
No, and I know we've talked about, addictions and stuff, and even targeted men with that and the suffering around that, and that has a huge part to play in it. I also think men need, and fathers specifically, need to understand that it's okay to not be okay emotionally in the moment, and just there's this weird stigma of perfection. If you're not okay, if you're having a hard time, if you're figuring stuff out, if there's some stuff going on that you're trying to figure out, somehow you have to bottle that up. You have to put on this facade that nope, you got it all together and at every moment of every day. And that that inevitably doesn't work. And that mask, that facade that you're putting on, if somebody really, really knows you and or is around you all the time, which your partner or wife is she's going to see through that and know something's off. And that's going to create its own kind of disconnect as well. But then also there's another aspect to this when it comes to children. When you're walking around stressed out, ball of nerves all the time, trying to just do what you're supposed to do. You need to mow the lawn. You need to fix stuff around the house. You need to go to work. You need to do this. You need to do that. You need to fix the leak under the sink. And when you're so focused on just, well, I just need to get this done and do what I need to do as a husband, as a father, but you're not okay mentally or physically, you're then missing opportunities to connect, especially with your children, because instead of just focusing on, well, I just need to hurry up and get this done. Kids, leave me alone while I do this because you're not okay, you're stressed out. If you were able to regulate that or be more present in the moment, you could then have your kids do these things with you or be a part of it and have that connection with your children while fixing something, while raking the leaves, while doing any of those things is an opportunity for connection. There can be connection around the stuff that you have to do on a daily basis. It doesn't have to just be, taking a lot of time, whether that be going to the park or a movie or something like that. Extracurricular, you can find ways to have those moments in the busyness of life as well. But if you're carrying 100 pounds on your shoulders, everything, you're just not going to feel like you have the bandwidth to do that, which is to your point, that mental health, that overall health of you is going to play a critical role in being able to show up and have those moments with your family.
Yeah, I think too, going back a little bit here though, where you said about not being okay or having a hard time bottling it up. The other part of that that I'd like to express is that you also, even if you aren't okay, you don't get to project your emotional state onto your family and your children. It's a very immature and a very prominent issue in society where we think because we're not okay, we can't own up to ourselves and hold ourselves to a higher standard to where sure in the moment we're having a hard time, but right now we need to show up for our children. And right now we need to show up in a situation, no matter what is going on. That doesn't mean that you're stuffing things down. That means that you have emotional intelligence. That means that you can be mindful and present in the moment and take ownership of yourself. And yeah, that takes work. That takes practice. That takes, not blaming others for how you react to a situation. I think that's missing too in fatherhood because I can't tell you how many shows did you watch growing up, like Little House on the Prairie, Nels and Nancy Olson, where it was just normal that they're just screaming at each other and saying negative things and belittling their kids. And it was funny, people joked about it. And it was kind of funny sometimes. But as an adult now, I don't find it very funny. I find it sad and dysfunctional. Or you see these movies where it was like normal just for everything to be chaotic and everybody to be unhappy and blaming each other for everything. And then you see it in real life too. My point is like being a real man, walking in your real masculine self, being a real father means guiding. It means providing containment, leading, setting the standard high, not in a I need my kids to be perfect and everything to be a certain way, in the way where you hold yourself to a standard, to where your children look up to you, to where your family can trust you and know that you're going to make decisions taking everyone's interests and safety at heart. That's important. And I think that's really missing because we mistake, well, I have a house and I have a job and I have all these things in a row. But at the end of the day, what's going on in the four corners of your home? Are you saving the world while your family falls apart? Or are you leading where it matters the most first? And I think that's true masculinity. And that is lacking. If it was if it was a prominent, healthy thing in society, things would not be going in the direction that they are. And I saw this stupid post, I feel like last week. I think you might have saw it too. But basically it said if women didn't work and they just stayed home and were trad wives or whatever, everything would just be fine. And of course the man posted this and all I could think of was, why is it always our fault? And don't get me wrong, we all have our ownership in the situations in society going on. Okay. I could talk about feminism and some of the modern things involved there that have not served us well. You can't hate men and think things are going to change. So I'm just going to point that out. But that post was just so like, do you not get it? Like
Mm,
I personally run a business as a mother, but I am home with my children and I homeschool. But this idea that if we all just sat at home, every woman sat at home all day, somehow things would get better. It takes two to have a partnership. It takes two to have a relationship. And I can just say that that kind of thinking is the same, I guess, pendulum why we are in this mess. The idea that you have to control others, that you have to decide what's best for everybody else, except not worry about you, not take ownership. I don't remember who wrote that post, but I was just like sitting there shaking my head. And then I saw another one where women shouldn't be allowed to vote anymore either, and these things. And I'm just sitting here like, why are we going backwards? First, you have the
right.
feminist movement that there was some needed things that changed when women's rights that were
Hmm.
important, that were equal. I'm not denying that. But then the pendulum got to this thing where now we hate men and all men are responsible for the acts of a group. And it's just this big back and forth. Like we think things are going to get better with this pendulum when it's just the same, more of the same. If a dad wants to stay home and his wife works all the time and that's their partnership and their family's thriving, that's great. It's not about your costume or I guess how you look. It's about what's going on in here. It's about what you're doing as you walk this earth and impacting the lives around you too. Not just your own children, but what example are you setting for everybody around you as well? And not a fake one.
Well, a lot of that stuff, you talk about the pendulum swinging, majority of that stuff is coming from a wound, a deep-rooted wound of a need that was not met or
Mhm.
something happened to them. And that's the way it's expressing itself, whether you have people like the fake masculinity of the Tate brothers that comes out, that's a mother wound. It's all a mother wound coming out of there. You have a lot of the stuff from the feminist movement today. Like you said, there was good stuff that came out of the feminist movement, but a lot of the man hate now is, a father wound or trauma around, bad toxic men. And now we're going to project that onto all men and put men down as a whole because of, some unresolved issue, and that's neither is going to bring healthy solutions to the table at all. And you talk about the family unit, whether there's absolutely nothing wrong with the woman being the breadwinner of the family and the man staying home if that's what two people decide they want to do and what's best for that situation. But to put everything in a box, in a cookie cutter, that this is how it has to be in order to be successful, or this is how it has to be in order for the children to be okay, or the husband to get what he needs, or the wife to get what she needs. Everybody's different. Every family unit is different. People's needs are different. And people are looking for solutions from like a one-stop shop for all their needs, how to raise their kids, how to be a better wife, how to be a better husband and father and mother. And we need everybody's looking for like an instruction manual because navigating these things are too hard. And a lot of this is coming out of a place of not trusting themselves and not being in a good place within their own mind and then their own heart. And when you actually start to get to a place of your own internal work, and this again goes back to what you were saying about your overall health, your overall well-being, mentally, emotionally, and physically, you'll start to find that you don't need all these books and all these help tricks because you start to be in tune with yourself. And when you're in tune with yourself, you start to be in tune with your partner, in tune with your children, and you'll start fulfilling the needs in your home from from the intuition of it, not by gathering all kinds of knowledge. And I feel like that's something that's been really lost, is being lost through time, because that used to be a very normal thing, just the intuition of what was needed in the home, whether it be, the father automatically sensing that, what my child is really lacking in this area. Let's go do this and start fulfilling that need so they can learn this lesson. Or wow, my partner, my wife is struggling right now, and I'm just going to, there's no book that will teach you to just automatically know when your partner is going through something, and just have that intuition that, okay, this is how I need to show up. It's
Yeah.
something you
I mean,
have
don't get me
to
wrong,
like.
there's some good books out there that can help you if you don't know what you're doing and you really never learn these things. I would encourage personal development. I think going back to even what that person had said, women, when it came to like partnerships back for thousands of years, men protected their women. And I mean, they
Mhm.
protected them. A lot of cultures valued women to where they protected them emotionally, physically, they honored them. And I think a lot of that is lacking in society because we're painting these other pictures that are built in control and fear and not containment and not love. I mean, like even to say, oh, back in the old days, grandma stayed home. I'm like, you mean during World War One and Two? You mean grandma was running the entire family and raising kids all alone during a war, wondering if her husband was even going to come back home? You think that was an easy, hunky-dory task? I
Right.
can only imagine the weight those women carried that they didn't have a choice in. So to say that, "Oh, everyone just needs to stay home and not vote anymore," and I was sitting there thinking, you think women just sat at home and ate cookies and watched their kids play on the playground all day?
Yeah.
No, that hasn't been the case for thousands of years. Like, go back to the Native Americans, go back to even the colonial times. What was the woman doing all day? Teaching, raising her children, keeping the home. Because I don't know. For example, I mean, one of my great ancestors is Daniel Boone. He was off somewhere hundreds of miles away for 6 months at a time. I don't know if he's going to be back or not. He might be killed by, wild animals or the terrain or during conflicts, between the colonial settlers and Indians. I can only imagine being a woman back then.
Gosh, I mean, they were
Like, so
homesteaders and
scary.
stuff. Like, what women contributed in those times was of just as much value as what the men were doing.
Yeah.
So nobody takes that in consideration now when everybody's like, oh, the women need to stay home, be more traditional with all this stuff. And it's like, that's not
What?
that's not the thing today anymore. It's just not. To have the equivalent, you're saying, to say, okay, a woman needs to stay home and open up a business, run it out of the home, and maintain that entire
They
business and help.
do. I mean,
But that's what they did. And like, to have the equivalent now would be so far beyond what the normal stigma is now, with what it means to be a stay-at-home mother or a stay-at-home wife. There's, like you said, it's not just sitting around and eating cookies and
I know it's a triple full-time job. Like even if you're like a stay-at-home mother, which yeah, I'm a stay-at-home mother that has a practice and I work, but I am really with my children all the time. I am the main person with my children all the time. And when I hear people talk this way, I'm just sitting here like, are you watching TikTok and there's some girl cooking bread online and you think that's all they do is they cook 3 meals and make fancy bread? And the kids just, change their own diapers and things aren't chaotic and the real life isn't happening. So this idea that, oh, if everyone just went back to being stay-at-home moms, what does that even mean? Because one, being a stay-at-home mom doing the basics is a full-time hard job. And then being a stay-at-home mother without a supportive partner, even if you are married, makes it a heck of a lot worse because then you're a stay-at-home mother that's lonely and can't have communication and can't know that, hey, everything's not on my shoulders. I would like my spouse to support me and let me know that he's behind me and vice versa. Like this is a partnership and that is missing in society. We think that, oh, well, because I go to work, I don't have to be emotionally safe. I don't have to show up. I don't have to grow. I don't have to give up the 6 beers on the weekend and play video games for 14 hours because she's got it. She's got it. That's the bare minimum. That's not showing up as a father. That's not showing up as a spouse. Just going to work, paying bills, and then you're the roommate that lives there, and apparently you have children together.
Well, and there's a
That's
big
all that is. And I feel like that's become fatherhood and that's become marriage for a lot of people. That is not normal.
well, and there's a you touched on it a little bit. There's a big piece of this missing. It is known that a mother is a very crucial part of a child's development, and for boys and girls. And part of a father's job is, yes, being directly there for the children, but to make sure that the mother has the ability to fully show up for the children, which she cannot do if she's constantly having to handle things on her own and doesn't have support and doesn't have the partner. It's impossible for her to be what she needs to be for the children. That's part of the father's job, is to take that off of her shoulders so she can be that nurturing mother that she needs to be for the kids.
And that can happen whether or not you're a stay-at-home mom or you're a mother with a career.
Mhm.
Because either way, you're going to support each other and figure out how this dynamic is going to work. You're going to sit there and tag team. This is a team. I think another sad thing in society is like if a woman has a baby and she does have a job or she's a single mom or whatever, you get 6 weeks off work. That's
Uh,
not like that's insane to me. And like again, our societal setup where we're saying, oh, women just need to stay home. It's like, but you don't set it up to where anyone is supported in being a parent, either side, men and women alike. You don't celebrate people having families. We're not family oriented. How many corporations have we worked for where it's like, man, they do not care that you have a family. They do not care that you have children. Nothing. Nothing is built around a family unit. So you're going to sit here and say, oh, well, it's because all the women went to work. No, I don't think so. And last I
uh,
checked, men run the world. Yeah, there's more women moving up, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of corrupt women out there too, kind of running the world in areas. But ultimately, for you to sit there as a man and blame women for all the problems of today is just ridiculous. It's insane to me, actually.
And I would say the standard set for these companies that don't really allow people to fully show up, fathers or mothers, to show up for their families the way they should. All those policies and how corporations and everything's done that has been built and created by men as well. So, what you probably know this, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but there's a study done on how long a mother should be home with a newborn after birth, and it was a lot longer than 6 weeks. I'm forgetting how long it was, but it was several months that was crucial for that child's
I mean,
development.
yeah, for your recovery, but even further than that, like even the courts of Ohio recognize this now. You shouldn't be separated from your child completely like that for a long period of time until they're after 5 because of the neurological damage it can cause. So again, there's obviously a big case here to say that you are going to have children. You need to be able to show up for them and not be gone from them too long, and especially when they're a newborn baby. Like we could do a whole episode on connecting and bonding and how important that is on the woman's part. Why men also need to show up. Like that's another topic of fatherhood and being a spouse. Postpartum depression is another rampant issue. And I promise you, it isn't just because someone's hormones are off. It's because women are not being supported post birth. Either their spouse doesn't know how to, their spouse doesn't care to, their community doesn't know how to support women in that. Like, I can't tell you how many times where it's like, oh, everybody wants to see the baby when they're a little cute newborn and say hi, and then they're all gone, and it's 3 months later, and you're sitting there postpartum, still like falling apart, trying to keep your baby healthy and show up. And if you have multiple children and stuff, there's a lot of dads and men out there that don't show up. They do the bare minimum. They don't recognize they need to be around more. Maybe their job doesn't even give them time to be around and bond with their child and support their wife. There's so many things here missing. the reason things are not going so well when you look around. And it's not because of issue, but there is a big gap. There is a big hole when it comes to being a father, being a husband, showing up. And you see it expressing in almost every area.
Well, that's a really big one. Being able to show up after a baby's born. And I mean, for men who don't know, who want to but don't know how to show up with a lot of this stuff, I would encourage men, have a vulnerable conversation with your partner and ask her, where do you need support? And I promise you, there's going to be a minimum of 3 things that pop up in her head right out the gate. It will be a great place to start, and approach it with set your ego aside and don't get defensive. Because if you already are having this thought of, man, I need to show up more, I'm not showing up the way I should, she's been feeling that for a long time. She's been feeling it for longer than you've been conscious of it. So approach it empathetically and set your ego aside, and even realize that you asking that question is also, in a way, giving her permission to unload some frustration off and during that conversation as well. And you might get some, because she's hasn't feel seen with it. And just take those few things and really apply yourself to that, and really commit to making that change and tackle it one at a time. And you'll actually start seeing the fruit of that rather quickly, and it'll work better for you. Men will find that the very things that they are wanting out of a partnership, out of a relationship, you get not by trying to control the situation, but by actually giving and showing up and being there and having empathy and allowing your partner to actually rest and feel supported. And it'll help a lot. And I'll actually let the woman talk about some ideas and things that men who are struggling to figure out how to do this as well.
Well, I think even deeper here is not just asking, but if you're trying to be aware and actually wake up to what's going on in your home or going on in your life, I don't think you're going to need to ask in a lot of ways. You can look around, and I can tell you this as a woman, we don't really want to be asked what you need to like, what do I need to do when it comes to things that we've already asked for? Like, no one wants to sit there and go, well, I've asked you to remember to take the trash out, and like, I'm not your mom, right? These are like basic things that if you're showing up and actually being aware and being a man, you're not going to ask, what do I need to do? You're just going to do it. And I think we joke about this all the time, Trey. Whether watch the reels where what do you find sexy and let's turn on, and they like show the guy taking the trash out and he's changing the diaper and stuff. I mean, I know it's funny, but honestly, those are the things that are attractive in a relationship, things that it's not what the person did, it's that they remembered what you asked for. They remembered to care and to put effort in and to be intentional. And I think as women too, we need to communicate. Obviously, our husbands can't read minds, although I would say Trey's getting pretty good at that. But you need to communicate, and you need to have, clear set, I guess, standards with each other and what you want in your life and with your partner and with your children, and how you're going to approach things on the same page. So you can grow as an individual, grow together, and guide your children. Because ultimately, too, like on the women's side of things, we're going to talk about disasters on that end too that contribute to this problem. For example, I've seen people where they're like, all men are bad, or they had a bad experience in their childhood with their father and whatnot, so they blame every man on the planet, and then they get married, and that energy is still there, right? They say they love this person, the man they're with, but that energy of control, I can't trust you, I'm going to control everything and make sure everything's perfect because I don't trust that you can be here for me, that kind of adds to a situation. Now a real man, a masculine man, he would approach that in a way that's direct and be like, hey, we're supposed to be partners here. What's going on? What's this coming from? And usually people with healthy relationships work through that. In other situations, I would say a real man's not going to sit there and also be a doormat for someone that's also in their pattern, in their wound. So this pendulum can go either way. You can have the poor example of a man, or you can have a poor example of what it is to be a woman and a mother. Like you have to show up in life. You have to show up in everything and give it your best and always be growing and always having awareness to reflect. I love this speech that I posted last week that Robbie had shared, but well, the guy was giving a graduation speech and he said, everybody has opinions and you should always be ready to tear yours apart along those lines and your beliefs and what you think you know. Because if you're willing to sit there and look in the mirror and go, this is great, not worry about everybody else's opinions, not worry about what everybody else thinks of you. What do you think of you and what's going on in here and what's going on in here? And men and women, it doesn't matter what you are in this way. Everybody can do this. This isn't just a guy's job. This isn't just a woman's job. This isn't just your husband's job. This isn't just your wife's job. This is you as an individual. This is your job. And that is how we find this balance. That is how we don't have pendulums. And that's how we show up as good parents. We show up as good spouses. We show up and we do the work and we don't come with the bare minimum. I think life is just this bare minimum. I'm just going to coexist or coast through life, and your kids are going to grow up and you're going to grow old and you're going to realize that you missed out on everything. If you're lucky, you'll realize that, I guess. Some people never do.
Yeah, and I think your health has a big part of that because if you're if you're going through every day and you just can't, if you don't have purpose, your life's a mess. Like where's the motivation? Where's the joy that you're finding in life to do any of the stuff that we're talking about? You know, if you're miserable, then it's just not going to happen. So yeah, I mean that first big step is taking control of your own life and finding your path, your sense of purpose, finding joy in life again, wanting to be there, wanting to show up in relationship, wanting to show up in your as a parent. And the happier you are, I mean, it's that stuff's infectious to those around you. And the same is true with the opposite side of it. If you're just walking around with that all that stuff all the time, your children are going to see it. And I don't think parents really fully grasp that the standard that you set for how you view life is going to be your children's baseline on how they view life. And if it's
And
just all,
themselves.
and themselves. So if everything is just always hard, always miserable, and that's going to be the baseline for their existence and how they start life, how they view things is, oh, well, this, I mean, the amount of hopelessness that puts within a child, especially when they start hitting their teen years and young adult years, is that there's just nothing and this just going to be rough and we're just trying to get to the finish line. It's really difficult for children to see that. So one of these guys I follow, you know, he was saying he gets asked all the time, you know, why do you go so hard? Why do you push yourself so much? And he pointed to a picture of his wife and daughter, but also he was in the picture.
Mhm.
He's like for them. And you know, that hit me really deep because, you know, a lot of people is, oh, I do all these things for my family, and I think it's really important that you're also doing things for yourself because you have your own standards, you have your own moral compass and the things that you want out of life as well. But to encompass all of that is was really beautiful, and I think that kind of stuff could really change hearts and minds and change the world if people really grasp that and took ownership of that and realize you don't have to be perfect, but growth is saying, no matter what, I'm going to continue to push forward. And like, I like thinking I don't have to be perfect, but I am going to push to be better than I was yesterday and make better choices and decisions and pursue real deep connection and relationship with my partner, with my children, and with everybody in my life. People see that, people notice that, and people then start asking, hey, what's going on? And that's where you can then help other people as well.
Well, I think there's a really good example in one of my favorite movies, which is Braveheart. And I think it's the scene right after like his dad's killed and his uncle shows up, if anyone's seen the movie. And he's got, wants to go fight and learn how to fight and sword, the motivation to you're hurting and in pain and want to go like repeat the pattern. But I remember in that part he like pointed to the sword and he said, you need to learn to use this before you ever learn to use that. And I think that's truth. And I don't mean in the way where we're gonna go out and, fight wars that way anymore, but we're learning this part first in life and the experiences that shape us. And a lot of times we're not learning this. And learning this is how you master everything else, your mind. You have to become a master of your mind because a lot of people are living in their minds, living in their thoughts, taking on every thought and emotion as if it is a part of them when a lot of them are not. You don't have to take on every single thing. So if you're not going to master yourself, how can you lead as a father? How can you lead as a partner? And I think that's true masculinity is being able to lead with yourself, take ownership, have a mastery of your mind. And that doesn't just like it's not saying you have to wait till you have this all figured out to get married or to become a father. No. But I think you have to be willing to take that step on and understand this is a lifelong journey and take ownership. And that's true masculinity. And it's not a surface level costume where you look ripped or you don't, or you can, look tough and strong. I mean, you can go have the perfect ripped body and look tough and strong and still be weak-minded, still be stuck in control, stuck in little boy syndrome. I mean, how many times we have to talk about this on the show where it's like you see adults behaving a certain way and they're just like a really big version of a small child throwing a tantrum, but in the worst way because now they're adults. It's not like they can just scream and throw a toy. Now they're throwing punches and drinking alcohol and doing all these things or harming their family members or harming their friends. So yeah, it comes down to the same roots of everything. Men and women alike can do this. It's not just attributed to men. But yeah, this is the big gap in masculinity. This is the big gap in leading in this country and in this world. It's missing big time.
Well, and it's really, really needed in the future. The world needs strong men who can figure this stuff out. Because there's a lot of broken, wounded children walking around who are struggling. If men can start to figure this out on a big scale and then find community with other men to push them and hold them accountable, that's another thing I feel like that's kind of been lost with time is the sense of community amongst men, good, healthy community. And men feel very, very alone. And, it honestly wasn't even that long ago that men hunted together. They did things together and pushed each other in healthy ways to become. And when I say become, that's pushing growth, pushing and making being uncomfortable normal in a healthy way. And there's not as much of that today. It's actually very, very, very docile. You still have men who have their groups, but it's all around wordy. It's around comfort and entertainment or just toxic complaining and stuff like that. There's not a lot of pushing for betterment of oneself. And I think that's something that really needs to make a comeback in society of healthy community of men pushing each other, holding each other accountable, and men wanting to grow into that and grow with each other. I think it's going to be a crucial element to men, true masculinity and true emotionally intelligent men starting to really thrive again in society.
I think even deeper than that is just having authenticity and honesty instead of, living fake lives and pretending that who you are on the outside and who you portray yourself to be is just a mask. Like you can't keep living that way. Like, yeah, there's things that you should definitely keep intimate and hidden from certain people in the world that are personal and just to you and your family. But we're too busy trying to put on a performance. We're too busy trying to paint a picture that something is a certain way. And that's like the whole existence, right? And broken people, that's the whole existence. You try to paint something that actually doesn't exist. You're not rooted in reality. You're not rooted in what is actually happening, what is going on in the present, what is the truth about your life. And to know yourself is important. I think that's how we show up, and I think that's how men take ownership and own themselves and owning their path in life. And women, like, we need to help hold men to that standard. Like, stop accepting the bare minimum. If you love someone, you don't enable them. You don't sit there and say, you know what, I'm just gonna keep tolerating, in extreme cases, let's just say you're in a really bad relationship, you're just sitting there tolerating the bare minimum because you're too scared to be alone. You're too scared to walk away. And Dr. David Mattei talked about this, but and I believe this too, one of our biggest downfalls that can be meant well is wanting to belong. Sure, we all want to belong. It's just like our human nature to want to belong to a community, to a group, to a family. But if that belonging means that you never are going to grow, you are never going to be authentic, then I guess pick your poison because you can either go through the pain of walking away and not belonging and decide that you're going to grow and change. And then if those people are still there after that process and you can be you, great. If not, go through that pain or the pain of staying in a group and staying the same and never changing, never growing just to belong. You can't find a path forward and growth in that at all.
I appreciate everybody tuning in this week, and we will catch you guys on the next episode.